talking away.
Seattle, years after the cordyceps outbreak, became more than a quarantine zone. It became a battleground, a city divided not by infected, but by people. On one side, we have the Wolves, or the Washington Liberation Front. On the other side, we have the Seraphites, known in whispers as Scars. What began as a rebellion for freedom evolved into a brutal war of ideologies, power, and revenge. And at the center of it all is a man named Isaac Dixon. Today, we break down how the WLF rose to power, how their militaristic grip fueled a devastating war, and what led to the fall of Isaac and the Wolves' dream of dominance. My name is wasticSON, and I hope you do enjoy the video. Now, before the Wolves were feared insurgents, they were freedom fighters. When the cordyceps outbreak hit, Seattle, like many cities, fell under FEDRA's martial law. But FEDRA's heavy-handed tactics, executions, and disregard for civilians ignited resistance. Out of this chaos, Isaac Dixon, a former FEDRA prisoner, united the scattered rebels, sparking a full-blown uprising. Through strategic attacks and clever guerrilla tactics, they eventually overthrew FEDRA in Seattle. What emerged from the ashes was the Washington Liberation Front, or WLF, a new regime with military precision, stockpiled weapons, and a dream to rebuild Seattle under their control. But that dream came with blood. Now, the WLF wasn't just a band of survivors, they were an army. Isaac turned the WLF into a strict hierarchical force. Commanders, squads, medics, scouts, and patrol units, each person had a role. Military drills were mandatory and firearm training began young. Discipline was everything. Even their base in the Seattle Stadium was militarized with barracks, training zones, and armories. What gave the WLF their edge was access to FEDRA's leftover arsenal, which included automatic rifles, grenades, body armor, and vehicles. They even trained dogs for training and combat. But behind the strength was something darker, a growing culture of control, fear, and obedience to Isaac's singular vision. Now, while the Wolves enforced with guns, another faction emerged from the spiritual ruins, the Seraphites. The Seraphites, or Scars, a derogatory nickname from their facial markings, rejected the old world, which included technology, modern structures, even names. They lived off the land, communicated through whistling, and believed the cordyceps outbreak was divine punishment. Their prophet, a woman whose writings became sacred texts, preached humility, simplicity, and community. When she was executed by the WLF, her martyrdom solidified their cause. This spiritual cult grew rapidly, and as they pushed into Seattle's territories, clashes with the Wolves escalated into a full-blown war. So, the WLF Seraphite War was a slow-burning massacre. The Wolves wanted to erase the Seraphites, who they saw as dangerous zealots squatting on land that should be civilized. But the Seraphites were not weak. They ambushed from trees, laid traps, and attacked in silence. They also weaponized their beliefs, executions by hanging, sacrifices, rituals to instill fear and loyalty. Entire districts of Seattle, including Capitol Hill, the Forward Base, the Channel 13 station, all became zones of brutal skirmishes. Patrols were wiped out, civilians fled or joined one side out of desperation. The war eventually began draining the Wolves, their resources, morale, and even soldiers, and yet Isaac pushed harder. Now, Isaac was no ordinary leader. He was calm, calculating, and deeply strategic, but also ruthless. He believed that peace could only come after total control. He didn't tolerate dissent. Even allies like Owen Moore began to question the endless war. When Owen killed a Seraphite to protect a child who is Yara, he defied orders and went rogue. Isaac branded him a traitor. As the war dragged on, Isaac began moving troops to assault Seraphite Island directly, a move seen by some in the WLF as suicide, but Isaac believed wiping them out was worth any cost. So this turning point wasn't on the battlefield, it was deeply personal. Abby Anderson, once Isaac's top soldier, began to change. After her revenge mission against Joel, her experiences with Yara and Lev, who are two defecting Seraphite siblings, forced her to see the enemy as human. She began questioning everything: Isaac's war, the wolves' brutality, and her own role in the carnage. Now, when Isaac ordered the execution of Lev, Abby immediately snapped. In a fateful confrontation during the assault on Seraphite Island, Abby turned on the wolves, giving Yara the opportunity to shoot Isaac dead. Now, Isaac's death shattered the WLF command structure. Leaderless and divided, the wolves began splintering. With no direction and mounting losses, the factions crumbled from within. By the time Ellie entered Seattle's third day, the WLF is already weakened, its leadership gone, its forces scattered, its dream of order dissolved into chaos. And by the end of The Last of Us Part 2, Seattle is a ghost of what both factions fought for. The Seraphites, after the island assault and internal rebellion, are all but wiped out. The wolves, leaderless and fractured, no longer control the city. The infected roam free, the streets were soaked in blood, not from monsters, but from people clinging to power, belief, and revenge. What began as a fight for liberation and peace ended in loss, futility, and silence. So, the WLF's rise and fall is a tragic mirror of the world Joel and Ellie lived in. A place where hopes turn into control and control leads to war. Isaac wanted to save Seattle, instead he helped destroy it. As players, we don't just walk through a war zone, we walk through the consequences of leadership, ideology, and dehumanization. Seattle wasn't lost to the infected, it was lost to the people who refused to stop fighting. And maybe in that silence, The Last of Us speaks the loudest. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.